Look at that mustache.
I forgot that I had this mustache.
It looks good.
I completely forgot.
How'd you forget?
I don't know because I've never had a mustache in my life, and I was shaving yesterday, and I just left the mustache,
Yeah.
and then I forget that it's there, and then I see myself, and I say, "Oh yeah, that thing's there."
It looks good.
18 years too late, following the trend of cool, hipster, ironic mustache.
When have you ever followed a trend?
Yes, I've waited until the trend has passed. But
Yeah.
but people are going to think, and this didn't cross my brain at the time, but that Movember thing is starting.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so now people are going to think it's tied to that, so I'll probably shave it.
No, because you'll shave the rest of your face, right?
Yeah, but Movember is growing a mustache.
No, Movember is not shaving anything, isn't it? Like even your whole face.
I thought it was growing a mustache, but that's only based on Aaron Rodgers, who always grows a mustache.
Yeah. I think it's all of your chin and cheeks, neck.
No, it's mustaches. Movember is an annual event involving the growing of mustaches during the month of November to raise awareness of men's health issues.
Oh, man.
Yep, so it's bad timing. Bad timing. Who's one?
It looks really, for real, I really like it.
Who's one to not follow a trend?
You'd have to wear a shirt constantly that says, like, this mustache has nothing to do with Movember. I did it and I didn't even remember that I did it. And then I realized that, what I mean? It would say all of that.
It is a very strange thing, this mustache. I also, I bought a couple suits, and
Oh, yeah.
I wore one last week.
How'd it feel?
Three-piece, no tie, so I kept it casual. But
How did it feel?
coupling that up with this mustache,
Ooh, maybe it's too much too soon.
the city is mine.
All right. So where did you wear this suit?
To the theater,
Oh, wow.
dressed up for the theater.
All right. Well, now that is a little bit more of an appropriate place. What I think when you'll know that, what was that? My lights went off.
But you lose power? You're not paying the
No,
power bill?
I lost some of my lights. So my lights burnt out.
What kind of lights? In the closet?
Christmas lights. Yeah.
Oh. Well, those are cheap.
Yeah, but they're in here and I don't have to touch them. And now I'm going to have to deal with them.
Maybe they came unplugged.
No, they're sitting right here because some of them are still on. It's that thing, like where like the master one blows out.
I thought they got rid of that. I didn't think that was a thing anymore.
Oh, they're back.
You just
Was
had
that?
to. You just had
Did
to.
we just get visited by a ghost?
No, because ghosts aren't real.
Oh, how do you know though?
Because they're not real.
Well, just a minute ago, I was lighting a candle and I felt like I blew out the candle and then I blew out the match and then I put the match underwater and then put it in the trash can and then I felt a heat on the side of my hand. And I thought, what? What? It didn't feel hot.
It's
but
called
I felt this like
friction.
intense heat
It's
right
called
here.
friction. Your hand rubbed
was-
up against something when you were doing this.
There was walking from the sink to the trash can?
Can't prove a negative, but ghosts aren't real.
Okay.
I
Anyway,
one of my favorite
try-
radio hosts used to say that. I think he still does. I just don't listen to the show as much anymore. It's gotten a little stale. But that was one of the things I took. Can't prove a negative, so you asked me how I know ghosts aren't real. It's like, well, you need to prove, the onus is on you to prove it to me that they are real. And a little warm wrist is not proof.
well, I didn't say that proved anything. I'm just saying it was strange. And then half the lights went out and then came back on without me really doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. Ghosts. Only explanation? Ghosts.
That is the only explanation.
Yeah. I was going to say, you'll know that you'll have made it when you're wearing those suits, just like, see, okay, first step, right? You wore it out to an event that sort of warrants dressing up for. So it was an appropriate place for it. And then you should start wearing them to work, just like walking around confident, like I'm the guy in a suit now. And then you'll start wearing them at home to work, even though you're not going into the office, but it's just because it's become second nature for you to be in a suit. That's when you'll know you've made it.
This is a nice suit. It's custom made. It has a floral lining. It has my
Love that.
initials stitched on the inside.
You're going to be buried in that suit?
No, because I won't be buried.
Oh yeah, you'll be burned in that suit.
Yeah. I mean, actually, no. It's a shame to burn that suit. I think I should be cremated naked.
Oh, you should.
Are people cremated with clothes on?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, wait. Yeah, because they sift through and they take out all the. They take out any metal at the end, and then also, oh, maybe they don't. I don't remember. I know that like the mortician has to take out anything metal in their bodies. So like if they've had like knee replacements and stuff, then they have to go in and take out anything metal, like that thing that keeps your heart regulated. What's that called?
Pacemaker?
Pacemaker, thank you. What's that thing called? The thing that paces your heart? What's it called?
Yeah, I think it'd be a shame to burn this suit. I got functional buttons on the cuffs. I don't like the...
What's functional buttons mean?
Well, the buttons that are on the cuff of the jacket. Quite often they're just for decoration.
Oh, really?
These you can actually unbutton and button. Not that I'll ever unbutton them, but I don't like the idea of having buttons just for show.
Yeah, it is strange.
And then I did the stitching on the first button, the stitching around the buttonhole. You can get a different color, and that's little signs to show that this is a custom suit.
Wow.
So I went all out.
Good for you.
Now I need to buy more.
Okay.
I have to stock up.
How much was it? You fucking rich dick.
No, it was 400 and... That's not a lot for a suit.
Okay.
Suits can get very expensive.
Already.
For the pants and the jacket, it was $460.
Wow.
And then I already had a waistcoat, a waistcoat, whatever the fuck it's called.
Westcott?
Yeah.
Wainscoting?
There's a strange pronunciation of waistcoat / vest. It's like waistcoat. But
like you don't open your mouth for any of the vowels?
I already have one that kind of... It was a lighter gray. The suit itself...
Your suit was blue.
Well, I got a blue one also.
Oh.
That one wasn't custom. That one was...
So, okay, so it's not like another 460?
The blue one was $390 or something. The blue one's a houndstooth design, houndstooth pattern. Mm-hmm. The coat, it's got a pretty good fit. I'd say it's a little long, but not clownishly long. The pants...
You're wearing your dad's overcoat?
Yeah, it's not that terrible. And then the pants needed to be tailored, so I took those in, had those tailored. But the custom suit...
Wow.
With my initials...
460? 480?
Yeah, something like that.
It's 480?
It was 460, I think.
Okay, 460, and then 350?
Oh, I'm doing that Klarna shit on one of them. Don't act like I'm shelling out all this money.
Oh, okay. Klarna.
One of them, yeah, with Klarna. It's like make 4 payments. Is that
the same as Afterpay or something?
Yeah, or Affirm is another one.
Okay.
Make 4 payments of $70-something every 2 weeks. Like, yep, I'll do that.
Still, it's pretty cool.
For one
Good
of
for
them.
you.
The other one I just threw on a credit card. It said I'll deal with you later. Yeah, but a lot goes into it. I had to get some ties. The ties were...
Oh, you've got like $500, $600 locked into this new look.
I mean, if you take both suits, I have and the ties, which 3 ties was 100-something. And I've got...
Well, that's what I said, 900. So if you have 6...
Yeah, I have like $900.
Yeah.
Sunk into 2 outfits. It's time. What can I say? This is what I'm doing as I age.
Whatever. You
Trying
have expendable income. You're fucking rich.
No, I'm not fucking rich.
Just like teasing you.
I'm not. That's the thing. You say this.
It feels like if you can pay the amount that you guys pay in rent, plus just like shell out some money like that for 2 outfits.
There's some extra, and I bought a car. I know I had some extra money.
Yeah, you did.
Well, it's because with the job, that pays more than I've made before, and then I get the extra money through the radio show, and then it's died down now, but doing side work, editing other people's podcasts. Mm-hmm. I also didn't put money aside for taxes for that. That editing podcast wasn't taxed income, but it was invoiced and a check was sent, which means the IRS will know, so I'll have to pay some taxes later.
Lame.
But not rich. The rent, I know the rent sounds insane, $3,400, but
You have a lot of.
I'm not
You
saying
have
it's,
a lot of money.
I'm not
I know of
sa-
some money that you have.
I'm not
You have a lot of
saying
money.
that $3,400 a
And
month.
then when certain people in your life,
What's your rent? Your rent's like 16.
yeah,
My last rent was 18 for New York City. That's not, don't act like.
yeah, but I don't have anything in savings. It's not already allocated to something else.
True. But that's
So, and how much do you have? I know something about you.
Not a lot.
Money.
not that
And
much.
then when some people in your life, when the future comes, you will also have even more money, which is crazy.
What are you talking about? My parents die?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my parents also aren't that old. So if everything
No.
goes accordingly, when they die, I'll probably be 65. Yeah, that's not. I'm not. The money doesn't.
Then you'll
exist
be
to me.
rich.
I'm not going to necessarily be rich.
It's okay if you are.
No. The money
It is
doesn't.
okay if you are.
The money doesn't exist. I don't think about it. I don't count on it.
All right, but even without that, you still.
It's also my dad. I don't know. It's my dad's money. He earned it. Like he.
Yeah, I'm not talking about that anymore.
He
We don't talk
wasn't.
about that.
He wasn't rich when we were growing up. I'm not saying we were
So?
poor. I don't need to live in that narrative. We were
Who's
so poor.
talking about your dad's wealth?
I'm
I'm
just-
talking about your wealth.
Well, because you go down this path where some people think, oh, you live in New York and you're paying this, you must be getting help. There's zero help. I need
Oh, no. That is not what I meant at all.
well, I already know that there's this idea that
Oh, hold on a second.
that some people hold. What is this? I thought you were alone. This is unbelievable. Oh, it's no big deal. Hanging out with the grandparents. Mima and Poopa.
No. So they're over at a neighbor's house.
Mima and Poopa? What do they call your parents?
Grandma and Grandpa.
Oh.
Sorry, they're over at a neighbor's house, and then she came back to get some shorts because she's wearing a dress and she wasn't wearing anything underneath except for her
Unbelievable.
underwear.
Outrageous.
I know. I'm sorry.
Nutrageous. Yeah, I know. You've got a limited amount of time because you've got a social event.
I do.
Yeah. It's 6 o'clock. It's 5:04.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You should. Apologize again.
I'm sorry.
Not accepted.
It's the middle of October, and you know what that means. Yes, I went to the store to get a costume and some candy. But when I got to Target, what I saw made me scream. It wasn't spooky skeletons, but bright Christmas trees.
It's not yet time for Christmas, it's time for Halloween. Say yes to black and orange, say no to red and green. There should be costumes, candy, pumpkins, black kitty cats. It's time for Halloween, put the Christmas stuff back, put it back.
Welcome to One Topic, where we stick to one topic. My name is Autumn Fisher.
My name is Greg Russ, and the topic of this week's episode is my friend Dave, who's coming up a lot.
My friend Dave.
I do think about that because last week, wasn't it last week or one of these
Yeah, it was
previous
last week.
weeks? I was showing you pictures of Dave and talking about Dave, waxing poetic about my friend Dave, and it's someone that I adore. It's someone that means something to me in my life, even though our time together. Like I met Dave when I first. This isn't actually the topic of the show. The topic of the show is inspired by Dave. So don't if you're thinking I don't want to hear about this guy I don't know, I understand that. But hear me out because it's what got me thinking about what today's topic will be. But Dave was a person who, when I first moved to New York, was my first friend, and we became close. We're similar age, and he had been here a couple months longer than I had. And he's the kind of guy who goes out and explores and will venture into places and find places that you normally wouldn't find. So,
Oh, which you love.
yeah, so it was cool to hang out with him. And he was a creative guy, and which is the real focus of this week's episode is creativity. I know we did a show. I was looking through the archives just to make sure. We did the Futureplex show, which was also called A Study in Creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was more so creativity in the workplace and how it fits in, because the Futureplex was, something I did when I was on the air at 99X. You can go back and listen to this episode if you care. But it was all original content, and management hated it, and I ignored them, and I really feel as though it was part of the reason I was taken off the air unceremoniously, just yanked off the air for being too creative, their exact words. So that was a little different than I think where we're going to go today.
And that was past creativity, and this is somebody.
Well,
this Dave of yours.
This Dave.
He's someone who's currently expressing himself in his creativity, and I personally am a little jealous.
He's the only person that I know that I would call a true creative in my life. There are people, I guess, who, there's a few other people who are able to do things that they want to do. It's very limited in scope. Sometimes it's tied to career. And when we get to the realm where being creative isn't tied to career, you lose a lot of people. Obviously, there are plenty of people who still paint, write, poetry, whatever it is. They still do things even though it's not their career. But there is this idea, I think, embedded in a lot of us that if you're not doing something creative for your career, like the thing that you want to do if you're a creative person, for the sake of this, just say writing. If you're not doing it for a career, why the hell do it at all? And
right. Mm-hmm.
And I feel as though Dave, when he was here in New York, there was one time he dragged me out of my apartment and he said, "This is the time. Now is the time. I have to do something creative. I need you to help me with it." And I said, yeah. And I finished my beer and I went home and I never followed up on it. So I feel like I feel like I let him down, because I do wonder what we could have done. I don't even know what that path would have looked like.
Do you mean it wasn't at that moment he needed your help? He was saying like he had an idea for something and he wanted you to help him.
Yeah, well, in general, he was in New York. He came to New York to try stand up.
This was the time period in which
life.
He wanted to include you in his creativity.
In life. This is time. The time
Right.
is now. And I just blew him off. It's like, yeah.
Why? Were you scared?
I wasn't in a good spot. This was the beginning of, I'm going to sit in this small 200 square foot apartment, and I know I got my hookup for some
Right.
pills, and this makes me feel good. I'm going to play online dominoes and rack up 16,500 games of online dominoes. So I wasn't particularly feeling motivated or creative myself at that moment. It's a shame because I could have possibly pushed through it, and that could have delivered some kind of fulfillment that would have kept me from that whole thing. But
Right.
that's pointless, because if that didn't happen, then would I have gotten to where I am now? A dude who wears suits and has a mustache? I don't know. Probably not. It's pointless. That's a pointless exercise is what I'm saying. It's like, the idea is nice in theory that, I could have avoided all that, but maybe that needed to happen in order for me to, really buckle down and figure things out as far as my life went. But, Dave, a guy who came to New York, tried stand-up comedy. He did it. I mean, he was going to open mics and he was doing it, but just to become successful doing it, it's a very difficult thing.
Yeah.
There are working comedians out there. I think Michael Albanese is one of them. Like, I think he makes enough money through his little endeavors to survive. So he's like a working comedian. Mm-hmm. But it's a fucking grind. That guy's
Yeah, it's a lot.
He's always on the go. It's a life.
I mean, like traveling.
Yeah, traveling, you go around, you're headlining a show, but it's at a comedy club in the Poconos. And I don't mean that as an insult, because then you jump to another town and you get to the city. It's just, it's tiring to me. And I think, when Dave was here in New York, again, I'm still talking about Dave because it does pertain to the overall theme of the show. At some point, he decided he was done with it. He's done. He's leaving. He goes back to Richmond, Virginia, and studies library sciences. And, he's fine now. He has a government job, a federal government job. I'm giving away his life. He probably would hate it. Probably would listen.
It's okay. His name's not really Dave.
He would listen to this like, what the fuck are you doing? But the point is, through all of this, He's one person I know who's remained creative. He does music. He does strange photo ops that look very nice. He's got his hand in many things. And I look at it and I think, you're still doing this. Because I feel like as though if I were the person who left New York and gave up on whatever my dream was, then I would have just shut down. I would have been
What
done.
was his dream while he was in New York?
Comedy.
Stand up?
Yeah.
Okay. So he didn't give up on the dream. Maybe he just realized it wasn't his medium.
Well, he gave up on comedy. He hates comedy now. So
Oh.
there is that element to it. But
Well, maybe you just like grow up and you realize, oh, actually, this is not it. And what he actually needed was something, that was stable, so that he could express himself creatively.
I think there's still some pain with the
Yeah.
comedy, which I get. It's something I feel a little bit with radio, except, I've never actually fully left radio. But talking about how I lost the radio job for being too creative, and then I came to New York and got into radio, and even that was, no, there's no room for any of this. I had a dream to do something. I got in and got started, which is the hardest part. So you get that in the rearview mirror, and you're like, well, I'm here, and then you realize...
And you were good at it.
Yeah, but you realize, you weigh the negatives and the positives, and you look at what's laid out in front of you, and you say, I'm not going to chase this because it doesn't seem worth it. Obviously, being involved with the Von Hessler Doctrine, which is, a successful show, is nice, and it satisfies and offsets some of that bitterness, I guess, I would felt towards radio. But let's say that never happened. I understand the feeling. I'm like, fuck radio. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be near it because it stirs up some bad feelings. But for
Feelings of failure.
yeah, which for me would carry over, I think, overall. It's like that was my creative outlet. This is that ridiculous idea that career, for the most part, I really think that career shouldn't be viewed as a creative endeavor. Very few people have the opportunity. Now we're getting into the Futureplex episode where I talked about it, but it's just this weird backwards thing. It's evolved over the year since we recorded that episode, my thoughts about it, because before I still feel like it's a shame, but I started questioning why so much emphasis was put on into put on this idea of career needing to be the vehicle or the outlet for creativity.
If you are a creative person, then it seems like the way to harness that creativity is to do it to get paid, to get paid for it. And then it would justify your focus on the creativity.
That's the dream, though, right? That's the dream, right? To get paid to
But
do...
maybe not. Because when you do... When something like being creative and being someone who... Especially like Dave, right? Like he's got a motor to produce things.
He just does it for the sake of it. Let's just set this up. Hold your thought. Don't lose your thought.
Okay.
Just to round out that idea, and the reason I introduced Dave is because he continues to create things, the comedy feelings aside. And I look at it and I say, you're the one person that I know who really is a true creative. You just keep doing these things because you want to. You do it for the sake of it. It brings some joy to a few people that you know, but most people aren't seeing it, and that in itself would be enough to shut people down because then someone might say, what's the point? Yes, right. Which is and that's the sort of almost, he might be doing it right, because if you are someone who just has to get out and produce, the thing that is driving them, right? Because they are a creative person. If you do that as your job, then it just becomes a job, right? And so you don't get to really... Well, Autumn.
You're expected to produce things. And you're expected... No?
Well, Autumn, do something you love and you never work a day in your life.
I know, but it always becomes work.
I agree with that. And
My job is easy as pie. And sometimes I'm still like, I don't want to do it. Like everybody has that.
The dream, and you are pretty lucky on that front. Like, you're not compromising much. Well, I shouldn't say that. You're compromising a lot for the sake of what Eric wants the show to be. But
Yes.
as far as Eric goes, he's living that dream where you're doing the show you want to do and most people are leaving you alone. Sure, there's some politics that come into play, but for the most
Right.
part, there's not much sacrifice of the vision. If you're part of the show, there's sacrifice. But
Yeah. Because it's not our show. We're a part of the show.
yeah, and you have to stay in line with the vision of the creator of the show.
Yes. The grand creator.
And I know that it's easy to say someone listening like, oh, boo-hoo, shut up. It's sure.
Oh, absolutely. Shut up. That's fine. I don't complain about it. It is just something that is true. That's okay.
Yeah, it can be true. And you are close to doing something creative as you want to for a career. But it's still a fun
and then even
thing.
this doesn't, I think, even this, sometimes I do feel like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Even though it's once a week, it's an hour, it's nothing. And every time we start, and if I ever feel that way, the instant we start talking, I always feel like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, it's good. I'm happy to be here.
There were some clunky shows.
Yeah, for sure.
There were some for me especially, there's some shows that were difficult to get going. But
Well, and there
you're-
were some shows where I was feeling good and then you weren't feeling good. So then you decided to put me in the shit mood so that you could feel better. And then I was in the shit mood. And then you were like, all right, and then I was like, all right, I can only do this for so long. It's already 10:30 at night. And then we had to record a whole show. And then I had to be like, snap out of it, which was difficult.
I mean, it's better if I'm on my game. It proves to be joking. Come on. Yeah, I'm going to lose you in the middle of this episode.
I know you're joking. It's fine.
But yeah, so the dream to do exactly what you want to do creatively for a career and get paid for it, that is ideal. But I think that's also
It could also be the
idealistic.
thing that stops you from being creative.
Most people don't get to do it. Very few people get to do it. You get close in career. Most people, I think, who pursue creative careers get close to doing something. The thing resembles a creative thing, but it really can be a little more soul-sucking than if you weren't doing anything creative at all and you're a creative person, because you're right there and you see it, but you have no control. And, my job is a good example of this. We make videos that are consumed on the internet for some well-known sites, and they get viewers. There's branded content, so there's clients involved with their products quite often. But creating video, shooting, editing, it's all, in theory, a creative endeavor. And this was something I struggled with years ago when the clients would come like, write me a script. It's like, okay, what do you want? Just something different. We want something that's different. It's like, okay, you write it. They look at it. What's this? This is too weird. This is too strange. No. And then throughout the whole process, it gets whittled down to a thing that's like every other fucking thing that's ever been released.
They don't really want something different.
No, they don't. They never want something different. And then you progress in that and they say, I want something different. And you say, no, you don't. You don't really want that. Yes, we do. And then you still do it. And I get really angry. I would get really fucking fired up. It's like, I'm not to them and outwardly, but it was just, you idiots. You say that you want, and this is a great thing, and then now you say you don't want it. And then once it progresses and you even know that that's the path it's going to take, it still is not easy. It's like I still get angry about it. And when I was editing, similarly, you make edits, you make something look nice, and let's change this. Like, that's stupid. That makes zero sense to change. But that's the point here, is you're close, but you don't really have power.
Right.
And you're just,
You can flex your creativity in ways that will solve problems, but your vision is not what's important. It's somebody else's vision.
well, I found it to be very frustrating.
Yeah.
And
Sounds frustrating.
as my job has progressed, I've moved into just more of a logistics role, which I love. It sounds like something you told me 15 years ago, even 10 years ago. Fuck that. I would never want to do that. I would hate that, because I held on to this idea that I need to do something creative. And I realized that work in itself, I've just divorced myself fully from the creative part of it. I'm not involved in script writing or concepts. Like, let other people handle that and the
You
frustrations.
like that better?
Yeah, I love it because it removes that frustration
Right.
that was so tiring and killed any creativity that I actually did have to do things outside of work when you're close to it and you're constantly fighting battles that you're going to lose. And even if you don't fight them anymore, still being close to it is a hard place to be. So having a job that's logistics, like scheduling and budgeting, and because I like numbers and it actually makes sense to me and it comes easily. And, you know, I check in with the editors and the team, and I've become a good manager, I feel, where I know that people have different personalities and they need to be managed separately and differently. And, you know, the team's small enough where I'm lucky enough where I can give individual attention. You know, and I feel as though people appreciate that, and I can keep people from being burnt out and them creating good work. So the creative element to me has been completely removed, and I've actually never felt more confident or better in a job.
Wow.
Which sounds backwards. And then that frees you up because you're not wasting all this energy. I'm not wasting all this energy to want to do other creative things outside of that. Now, this has still been a difficult thing where I haven't necessarily done that. I've worked on other people's creative projects. It's like I dip my toe in the pool. For whatever reason, I still don't want to fully go for something that's mine, and my creation, mine alone. It's a slow process. I think I'll get there. But, you know, I've done sound design for that Fireside Mystery Theater, which was old radio plays done on stage. And by old, I mean old sounding. It was all original content that people created and wrote strictly for that, like, you know, mystery type, not quite horror, but stuff that was done on stage. People would come out and see it at a theater. I did the sound design. We'd run the sound effects live, and, you know, I got real joy out of that. And they also turned that into a podcast, like everything else is a podcast these days. Or my friend Kirk, who owns a small theater, and I would do sound design there or help them get other shows up and running. And that stuff has been beneficial because that's pure creative outlet. Again, it's me helping someone else, and I think there's another step to still take. But this is stuff that I wouldn't have the energy to do if I were still really trying to shoehorn creativity into my job. And it sounds like this is the exploration I've had. It's like, am I just saying that? Am I just giving up? And I'm not. Like, I realize that I'm not. At one point, it felt like a cop-out and giving up. It's like, no, it's just accepting the reality of things, which is...
What is the reality of things?
That most people don't get to do creative shit in their jobs, and the people who are close to it, I think it takes more of a toll than just being completely removed from it and doing something that's not creative for your job, and focusing on creative things outside of work and finding value in that still. Because, as we've already said, there's this idea that if there's not a big audience for it, or you're not making money doing it, what's the point? And I think that's wrong. I think I bought into that for a long time, and that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to create something that had an audience.
So that's what I was going to ask, because you said that, you know, you participating in some of these creative outlets is like one step below from what you would think. So like what would that be for you? Would it be you running your own show or writing something, or...
Possibly. It's still a difficult thing for me to explore, because as much as I say this to you, that there's value in it, and I do believe that there's value in doing creative things for the sake of doing them, even if there's not an audience, there's part of me that thinks, yeah, but I want an audience, and if somebody wasn't there to consume it, it would make me feel bad. And if I'm working on someone else's project, for example, and nobody shows up to see the Fireside Mystery Theater show, like one person comes to the audience, it doesn't make me feel good because I want there to be a full house, but I also don't like take that and internalize it and say, well, I failed. It's someone else's thing who failed. So there's still a progress that needs to happen where I
think that's just human nature. I mean, we can only truly see ourselves, you know, through the reflection of someone else. You know, not truly, but it's a way for us to get to know who we might be, right? So if you're doing something and you put it out there for people to see and then nobody sees it or one person sees it, then I think it would take a really highly developed sense of self-esteem to be like, no problem. Like, I just did it for me. And if it's one person saw, then it's fine. No, you would feel like, oh no, I wanted people to sort of reflect back to me how I feel about what I've done.
Yes.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's just human nature.
There's a but though. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you said that we need, I forget how you phrased it, something about we see ourselves through other people. I don't, no, it's a fucking ego trip is what it is for me. I want to create something and have people fawn over it and say, this is so amazing and confirm.
Oh, that's that thing where you're like the shit or a piece of shit.
Yeah, there's like to confirm the side of me that I don't like to admit exists, but it's
Right.
there that thinks I could do something that's really great. And then if people fawned over it, I would switch to the other side. It's like, no. It's
Right,
not, come
yeah.
on. It's not that big of a deal, which is what I did when I was in radio, in Atlanta especially, is, I was going out and there are people who think it means something that you're on the air. I do also buy into this idea. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's cool, but it's not that big of a deal.
Well, do you remember when you were about to speak on the air and how like nervous you would be? I would have all this adrenaline coursing through my body every time I was about to come on the air. And now it's absolutely nothing. Like, sometimes I kind of forget that so many people are listening, especially during the podcast 30s.
I can still get caught up in that. But
Yeah.
yes, it's funny because when we were on the buzz, both you and me, or that'd be an I in that instance. When I was on the buzz, both you and I were on the buzz. That was pre-recorded, and I would still get nervous, and I would record breaks over and over and over and overthink it. And then when I went to 99X, it was live. And yeah, it was especially early on. Like, they did start me at overnight to kind of get me acclimated. Mm-hmm. But fuck, I would lose my train of thought. My breathing would get all off.
Oof. Yeah.
And it still happens, though, honestly, sometimes if I come into the radio show, the Von Hessler Doctrine, and I have something that I would like to present that I've put a little more thought into, I do get sometimes a bit nervous and my breathing gets a little off. I'm better at calming myself and presenting things the way I want to. If I'm coming in and we're just going to riff and I'm presenting stories, I'm not overthinking it. But the moment I have something that I want, like the other day when I was on the show and I was talking about how I insulted 4 people in 15 seconds, I'd thought about it. It wasn't like a planned out bit fully, but it was something that I wanted to talk about. And I guess there was this fear that I would screw it up. I was like, all right, now you're on the spot. Now's the time to do this. And, there was enough time from when I got on the air to when I presented that I was able to calm myself. And then I think it sounded natural and good. But yeah, there was still nerves that would come into play. I don't know how this ties into what I was previously talking about.
Well, because we were talking about having an ego and feeling.
Oh yeah, the radio stuff. I mean, when people be like, "Oh, cool," I was like, "No." But it's like I probably made them feel like shit. It's like, "Shut up, you fucking idiot! It's not cool."
Well, that's the thing. When someone gives you a compliment, or when someone gives you a compliment, it is like a gift, and you never say like, "No, I don't want your gift." You're like, "Oh, thank you." You want to take the compliment, you take it. You're like, "Oh, thank you."
But there's a real embarrassment that comes into
I know,
it too.
because it does make you feel like someone heard my voice at the grocery store the last time I was there, and like talked to me for a second.
Oh,
And-
you loved that. You loved that. Autumn doesn't
No.
have the embarrassment. I know that embarrassment gene doesn't exist.
No, I wasn't embarrassed
yeah,
in
it's
that
me.
moment.
And you hammed it up.
Don't.
And you
Come on,
started
this is where we can be truthful about our lives and not play up something about.
okay, but just let me tell you
Don't
what
add hyperbole to this story. That is not what happened. You can
Okay.
do that on the other show, but not this one.
Okay, but just let me tell you what I have in my head. Like, yeah, that is me. And then you started doing that thing where you got on the ground on your side and started like walking in a circle. Where
That, whoop, 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 whoop.
showing off for this person
That is what I did.
because it's you from the Von Hessler Doctrine. But
I
okay.
did a backflip. I did the Fergie backflip singing thing.
You're a ham. You ham shit up. When there's
Yeah, that's fine.
When there's a live audience, that's why I bring this up. But I hear you. I won't.
Don't criticize me for that. That's just my personality. I don't do it because I need to prove something. That's just me.
I mean, I still, when there's a live audience, I do get embarrassed.
Yeah, but you get weird too. You get like, I get an Autumn way and you get a Greg way.
Yeah, because there's this idea in my head. It's like, what the fuck? I don't belong here.
I'm not thinking any of that.
I'm not
just
any
like,
better
Isn't
than
this
these-
fun? Let's all have fun.
I'm not any better than these people. Someone else from the audience can come up here and do the exact same thing. But I told you that I embraced it last time I did a live show.
Yeah,
where
and
I
didn't
just
you feel
said,
so much better?
well, I said, you know what? I'm not saying that I'm better than anyone overall, but doing this, yes, I can do this and I can do it well. And I went out and had a good show. But anyway,
Most people that might be there watching you couldn't do that. And I, for a while, didn't believe that was true. I felt like it was something that could be learned or something. I don't know. But and then once I got more and more into radio, it was like, oh, no, people can't all do this. There are some that can, but it's a smaller percentage of people. But okay, my point was that when I tell that story, I wasn't embarrassed in that moment. But when I tell that story, I get weird, like I'm bragging, that like someone heard me and knew me. And I'll tell the story. And then after I've told it, I feel very uncomfortable in my body. Like I want to over explain and be like, I'm not saying this because like I'm anybody. Like it wasn't a big deal. I thought it was neat, but it wasn't like, I mean, who am I? I'm not like, oh. You know what I mean? But then once you do that, then that makes things even more awkward. So then I just have to like sit there in my own like
it can be
embarrassment mess that I've made in my pants.
Look, it's a cool thing. I will admit, like when this was a couple Christmases ago because last one was COVID and I didn't go back down, but I was like at Costco with my dad and someone's like, hey, Greg Russ. And that's my dad.
Especially with your dad.
That's my dad's name also. And my dad's worked with, Lockheed's a big company and he knows a lot of people. And even he thought it was someone he knew and I thought it was someone he knew.
Right.
And we turned and like the guy was talking to me and it was quick. He's like, he complimented the show and a nice comment for me and left us alone and was on his way. I also would have talked to him. Like I don't.
No, he just wasn't.
I'm not
like
that
a
grumpy.
Weirdo. He was just normal.
But
excited to see you.
But it was cool. And then like especially in front of your dad, you're like, see. But I think we're also removed from it, not living in Atlanta, and also I'm not on all the time as you are. But I think it's enough where people listen to the show, they at least know who I am in that context. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we live in places where it's like I don't think about the fact that I'm actually on a show that a lot of people listen to.
Me either.
And it doesn't come up here. It doesn't come up there for you. And
well, my dad, now that my dad lives here, my dad's silly. And so like people will come in like old friends of his or something and be like, hi, it's my dad. Hi, nice to meet you. He's like, she's a radio star. I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, but it's cool to him.
I know. And so then I have to, so in my heart, I'm like, oh my God, no, don't introduce me like that. And then, but again, I don't want to mess up this vibe. Right. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on a show in Atlanta, like,
well, that's also,
I'm not like, I am a radio star.
No, because your dad's putting you in a spot too. The person doesn't really care. Like maybe they think it's cool, but they don't hear the show. They live in Maryland. It doesn't mean anything to them. That happened when I was at my sister's once. And there were a bunch of people from out of town, like, her husband's family, and, someone brings it up, but they don't know what the show is. I'm like, yeah, radio. It's like, I don't feel a need, like you said. It's just you're in a spot at that point where if you talk about it, you don't want to come off as if you think you're a bigger deal than you are, or it's a bigger deal than it really is. And especially when people aren't fans or familiar with the show because they really don't fucking care.
Like, who cares?
That's something you have to keep in mind.
I mean, if someone introduced, and if I wasn't in radio and someone was introduced to me as that person, I'd be like, oh, cool. I would ask the same questions. I wouldn't feel like I was meeting a celebrity or anything, but it would be like, oh, that's interesting. That's not like, that's why drag queens, when people don't know they're drag queens, introduce themselves as accountants because they don't want to have to explain anything.
Which makes sense.
Same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a world where people know you, and within that world, great, okay, I'll talk to you. Outside of it, it's like I don't think much more than this is something that I do here and there.
And also, I love podcasts and I love talk radio. So, and if I were meeting the people that I feel like I'm friends with, there was a time when the line between not knowing someone and feeling like we would be best friends was very blurred with me and Pete Holmes. Like, I was really into Pete Holmes for a while. And so if I ever met him in person...
This is my son Pete, named after you.
No. I mean, a little, but no.
Okay.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, I mean, but even if that was the case, like if someone did that to me, I would, even if that made me uncomfortable or whatever it made me feel, at that point, I would want to make the other person feel like not embarrassed for meeting me. Because if I were to meet some of the people that I loved, then I wouldn't want them to do that to me. Do you know what I mean? So like, I know the experience that I would want to have. And so I try and give that when I meet people that seem to react to liking me.
Not be a psycho. It's a good choice. Not be a fangirl.
Well, even if they are a fangirl, it's like, I get it.
No, you meeting people.
Oh.
I think it's a good choice on your part. But okay, you get it.
Yeah.
To tie this back into the creativity
To Dave,
thing, though.
need to bring up Dave again.
I'll always bring up Dave.
Yeah, how does Dave feel?
It's a person that I really like, and I'm glad that I met him. But to tie it
Did you
back,
ever apologize to him for not participating in
I
his creative endeavors?
I probably brought it up. Who knows? I think I did at some point. But the radio show for me, because I am not on it every day, and when I do come on, since it is a segment that is my segment, while it is still subject to, what Eric wants, I think I have a little more freedom and flexibility to present.
We've trained him almost.
To present something, yeah, I guess in certain ways. How so?
Well, I think that I think in the beginning, he needed you, right? You were like a life raft in this scary ocean he was in. And then once he felt more confident, then you stayed the same, but you became almost somebody he didn't feel like he could trust, because he felt like you would go off and say something that would make people mad and that he would have to answer for it, and whatever, whether that was political or just some little opinion you had or something.
He's not wrong. There were a couple instances where I did say things that probably crossed the line.
Okay,
But
well, I'm just saying I think this is what he felt. And then I think that you guys had a little bit of a head-to-head, like a little bit of an argument or something at some point, because I forget why. Oh, I forget why. Do you remember?
there's been several arguments. So you're talking about the ones that happened on the podcast, or there's many instances?
Oh, there's those. And then also like texting issues, and friendship things where it's like, your definition of friendship and his definition of friendship. One I think is more accurate than the other. Is very different from each other. So
well, there used to be actual conversation that, like, even when I moved to New York,
right
now he says I don't want to pick up the phone. I don't want to get stuck in an hour-long
well,
conversation.
some people need that.
I also
some
don't need an hour.
A little something.
We used to talk for like an hour and a half, and he seemed plenty, invested in it and enjoyed having those conversations. But that aside, as my role on the show has evolved, I do think, like, I like being a part of the show and talking about having creative things on the side. To me, being on the show a few times a week and having a segment that I have more input in than, say, you have in the show, even though you're on all the time, which I think comes with the territory of you being on all the time. I don't know if I'd want to be on all the time unless it was...
No, because you would have to hold back way more than I think that you'd be comfortable with.
And as we said before, I don't want to sound ungrateful or spoiled about it, because it's still a cool thing to be a part of. But that shit takes a toll on me. Like, it puts me in a bad spot over time. And then
I can take it. I've learned to take it. I've learned to deal and understand it. So
I think I view the radio show now as a creative thing on the side that I do, and I get to make a little bit of money doing it. And it actually
you've molded it to fit what your needs are for it. And like I said, you conditioned Eric to trust you enough to let you do the type of segments. And I think also like just through exposure during your segments and then after your segments, they ended up being interesting and not just the same old thing where we read a headline and we talk about it and he rants or we laugh or we do an impression. Like your stuff has more of a discussion element to it, and I think it's more interesting.
Yeah, we don't do the stories half the time. We just talk. And
right.
And I do like that. I like that happens also.
Right.
And I'm just using this to illustrate the point that I made earlier, where that show, while it is much more creative than many things that you could do, if you're not in control fully, I think being a part of it full time for me, not like it would be awful. And, I would find a way through it. But I think that I enjoy the way I'm involved now more than if I were involved full time, because it does get to live for me as a purely creative endeavor that isn't necessarily
right.
my career. I make a little bit of money doing it, but it exists because I enjoy doing it. It's fun, and it can be close to what I want it to be. And that provides more satisfaction than if I were there full time, feeling as though I had to compromise more than I wanted. Obviously, everyone has to compromise, but more than I wanted. And this is the shift overall that I've been feeling just in life. It's like it's still difficult to get there because, again, the dream really is if you can have a job where you're doing exactly what you want to do and someone's paying you for it and people like your work. It's like, wow, you can't beat that. But that is rare.
I disagree, because then let's say that you're in some sort of creative rut and now all of a sudden your livelihood is based on it. And then that kind of pressure doesn't lead to great creativity. It creates like pressure that you can't do it. And like it's tied into this like inner fire inside of you instead of it just being instead of just your career being your job that you can just like get done, do it, do the motions, and then sometimes you have more passion for your job than other times. But if you don't, it doesn't alter your behavior as much as something that's tied to your soul.
If you're in a spot where you've made enough money and you can take time off and disappear and straighten that out.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen that much when you're involving when you're doing exactly what you want for
depending on what it is.
Career.
If you got rich, then you can. And some people,
I know, but then it's within that tiny percentage. Then you have those people that are rich from it. And that's even harder to find.
Able to disappear because yes, most people, if you're in a spot, then you have to force through, and then your content suffers, and then you're probably. It's a very difficult thing.
That's what I mean. So that's why I think that Dave is actually he's doing it right, because he's got the sort of like cookie cutter square job, right? That he can focus on and do maybe with his eyes closed, or just it's a whole different part of his brain. And then he gets to be creative and do things on his own. And there not be any, no one's clamoring for him to be like, hey, where's your next weird song? Let's go. Let's do next week. You got anything for us? Do you have any have any concepts you can send us? And
I agree with that. That's the point I was making, outside of that rare instance where if you actually got to do. And coming around on that is interesting, because I still haven't, again, fully jumped into creating something solely for me or something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if I get there. I hope so. Like I feel like it's needed, because otherwise then life does feel boring. There's a grind to everyone's life. And if not offsetting that with whatever it is, for me, it would be doing something creative. For someone else, it can be any kind of hobby. And when we say this, I think, you like to bake. I find that to be a creative endeavor, though it's very restrictive in the sense that you have to follow instructions to a T for the most part, else it doesn't work. But that's, learning that process and doing it.
That's the thing. Like, I don't really alter any recipes that often, so if I did, maybe that would sort of flex my creative bone. But then I also, I do these drawings and things, and I feel good about them and I like them, but my appreciation of them is nothing compared to when I show them to someone else. Like, I need pats on the head. Like, oh, that's good. Like, oh, thank you. Like, you don't have to freak out about it because I'm like, no, don't do that. But just like, I just need a little like, attaboy. Like, good job. You do. I really like to be seen.
I think most people like to be seen and understood and viewed as being a complex human. And not
like a
just,
nuanced human, a dynamic human.
Yes, flawed. I know that's not directed at you, just in general.
No. I'm just thinking like, I agree, but it's hard to come to terms with that one. But
I mean, we talked about this on a few episodes ago. The perception being on a show, having people have ideas of who you are and not really understanding the full picture, and how that can be frustrating and difficult because it does become, and this is probably something, a lot of people do face if they are putting their work out there and they're successful, is there's a lack of understanding of the full texture of who you are. Even if you're doing something and working in a field, I guess, that can be more expressive. Like music, I think painting's one thing. You have a talent. You can say something in your painting that can be interpreted in many different ways. People don't really know about you.
But there are some things, there are some creative outlets like that allow for more eccentricities. Like the artist, the musician, those people can be, disliked, wild, harmful people if they want to be and still be successful.
Oh, it becomes
Whereas,
romanticized. Like, look at this.
Right.
They lived that life.
But then a lot of times, like if you're an actor or something, then you're used in the media to be, and like, especially people that are young and have to like grow up in it, like it's so hard to find yourself if you've only ever seen what people see of you instead of experiencing it for yourself. It's crazy.
Yeah, that would be a hard thing to deal with for me also, is if, as I say, the dream is this, but the things that come along with it. But there's still a need to create, and finding that path and what that looks like. It was something at some point I wanted to avoid. It's like, I'm done. I don't want to do it. I'm giving it. It's all not going to be what I expected it to be. It's like a baby about it. And threw a little fit, and then it's coming to light. It's like, no, there's a way forward that this can actually work for you. And as we talk about the negatives that are involved, I still would not. I would deal with them and be happy to make some money and have people like the stuff that I do if I could do it the way I wanted to do it.
Maybe you're getting more comfortable with yourself and who you might really actually be.
Yeah, maybe.
Gross.
Possibly.
Start writing, please.
One day. That's what I say. I procrastinate. Once I get to the point where I'm about to die, it's like the night before the papers due, and then I'll start. It'll all come pouring out because I'm the biggest.
Opus.
I'm the biggest procrastinator that there is. So I don't know. We'll get there. I feel as though I had some other point, but I know you're looking at the clock because it's tick, 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 almost 6 o'clock.
I know. Oh God, I'm so busy.
So
all right, but
I forget what the last thought was going to be. I feel as though it was probably a very good thought, but now it's lost to the ages.
Well, if you ever find it, you can tack it on to the end of this.
Because I saw you looking at your watch. I don't think we explained the song that we opened up with.
Please explain the song.
Shut up about Dave. I want to hear any more about Dave.
Never.
I don't. Shut up. But the song that we opened up with is just an example of something that he does. He just sent that to me today. Though I think there's a small independent radio station that doesn't have many listeners that he knows the people, and he made that, and they're going to air it. Like, so 6 people.
Really?
6 people will hear it. But that Halloween song that we opened the show with, and then I'll close the show with it. That's just the thing. I get these things from him. He's like, I did this. I'm like, cool. Like, he recorded in his bedroom. And all the voices are his, and all the instruments are his. And I think that's cool.
It is cool.
And I'll listen.
And I like that he does it just to send them to you.
I'm his only audience.
Yeah.
I'm it. But maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all you need. One person who can appreciate it. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoy our creative endeavor, because that's really what this is. If you like us, please rate and review and subscribe. And please support our sponsor, hoffandpepper.com. You can get 15% off some really great hot sauce from locally made in Chattanooga if you use the code ONETOPIC15. Go to hoffandpepper.com. Also, they're featured on Hot Ones. This week's guest was Mila Kunis, and she said she liked it. So that's all that matters, I guess. Okay, thanks. Bye.
It's the middle of October, and you know what that means. Yes, I went to the store to get a costume and some candy. But when I got to Target, what I saw made me scream. It wasn't spooky skeletons, but bright Christmas trees.
It's not yet time for Christmas, it's time for Halloween. Say yes to black and orange, say no to red and green. There should be costumes, candy, pumpkins, black kitty cats. It's time for Halloween, put the Christmas stuff back, put it back.
I asked to see the manager and he just laughed at me. But nobody was laughing when I kicked that Christmas tree. He sang Mariah Carey songs and tried to chase me down. I grabbed a giant candy cane and beat him to the ground.
It's not yet time for Christmas, it's time for Halloween. Say yes to black and orange, say no to red and green. There should be costumes, candy, pumpkins, black kitty cats. It's time for Halloween, put the Christmas stuff back, put it back.
A crowd of parents gathered. I asked them to think back to a time when they went door to door, dressed in shades of black. We gave it up for witches, for zombies, ghouls, and gore. We gave it up for spooky tales and delicious candy corn.
Okay, nobody really gave it up for candy corn.
We tied up the manager, we turned down the lights. We told some spooky stories and laughed into the night. In my headless horseman costume, I galloped out the store. As Mr. Poe once said on Christmas in October, nevermore.
It's not yet time for Christmas, it's time for Halloween. Say yes to black and orange, say no to